well do you really know your competition? I'd like to start off this little section, which is the intro to a series of tools on how to look at your competition, with a story that I think is very evident of what you probably think doesn't happen. Working for this multi-billion-dollar company, and we were looking at different ways in which to penetrate a market, work within a market space, and to compete. And during my interviews, I had done 10 interviews before I had started working with them. I had received a lot of information and a lot of disconnects about things that I found didn't make any sense to me. This organization brought together 80 of their top talent, their top management team, into a room for 2 days of working together. And in the second part of the series of what we were working on, I threw a matrix on the board, a chart, and with 3 columns in them. And on those 3, I said, who are our top 3 competitors? And that was not a difficult question. I wrote the top 3 up there and filled in the blanks, and that was good. And then I said to them, can you please tell me what the revenue of each one of those of the top 3 competitors are? And no one answers. I look around the room, and a few minutes later the CEO says, and I said, no, I know you know. I want to know if they know. So no one raised their hand, no one knew, so I filled in the blanks. I then asked them, who are the top, how many salespeople do they have? And I looked around the room, and no one could answer, so I filled in numbers. I put in there, what are their products and services? And there was a little bit of guessing, and people threw out some of the things that they offered, but they really weren't accurate. They were more guesses than accurate. And I had to fill that in. And then what I did is I said to them, all of this information was more or less available in public domain, and no one knew what they were. Now, you would be surprised that a multi-billion-dollar company that's facing all of these challenges, the top management team doesn't know this. The first reaction is, well, those managers should. Well, when I went on break, I heard a woman say, I'm so embarrassed that we had to bring somebody else in to show us that we don't even know about our competition. I'm really thinking about the CEO at this point. With all the resources at his disposal, multi-billion-dollar company, he's been having his people make decisions without the right information. Why hadn't he thought about getting the right information and disseminating it through the group? Making sure that people are getting the information they need to be able to make those decisions on a proper time and be able to win. He didn't do that. So how many intelligence officers out there are doing the work for you that you need? Do you know about the proposals being offered on the same project you're working on? If there are grants that are people looking for, do you know the other grants that are being put out there and by whom? All of these pieces of information can change the way in which you win in the next competitive environment you're in. So I'm going to start off with the first tool on this, and then we'll add some others. It's where do you look? Your competition is not always your competition. We normally think of our competition coming from within our own industry or across our industry. These are the people who can damage us. They are the competitors that we see in the marketplace. The reality is that's not always the case. So let's take an example of a company, Netflix. Netflix, for some of you who don't know, offers online or offline CDs, videos, so you can watch movies. They grew very rapidly. I think even this last quarter they had $200 million in profits. Good, done well as a company. Netflix's competition could easily be the simple things that you might think about. They might be your cable television or a movie theater. Yes, those are competition. They also, which you probably already assume, they could be YouTube or any of the online visitors. But have you ever considered a competition in Netflix is workload in a community? If people in that community have to work harder to be able to survive, they're probably going to watch less films. They're going to be less engaged in that type of content. Have you considered that it could be that when people are stretched for time or other events that are being put on, that's one of the competition, or one of the pieces for competition? It's not always in your area. And what that means is that you have to start thinking beyond the scope of your normal range to be able to understand that competition comes from different angles. And the enemy, let's use the term enemy, because of the military we use either in other places, can take its place in many different forms. For example, the enemy of government could be information. The enemy of the heart association or trying to raise money could be the diabetes race that's being run or the multiple sclerosis program that's being put on. It's not just that people, the enemy of the heart association is one group, it's anybody contributing or taking a share of wallet away that people can't contribute. And the more that you look at an ecosystem around whatever you're working on, the more likely you are to find that your enemy comes in many different looks or appearances. And they're not always the one that's directly in front of you that you've always assumed. The guy down the street who's taking that job from you, or the product or service is the person who just applied for a job. It's much more complex. And if you expand your scope, you're going to be able to find other opportunities to be that much better and make much better decisions. So let's go on to another tool.